Okay, so we just watched the C.S. Joseph response to the video in which Opalite and I said that he was an ENTJ, not an ENTP. And I thought I'd go over this with my students here in class for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's very revelatory about framework and about assumptions and about how people reason differently and are often unaware of their own implicit framework. So if I were to say to somebody, we should provide the death penalty for jaywalking because that's the only way we can get rid of it for sure, and it's a crime that people commit. My implicit framework is that the ends justify the means, right? That's the implicit framework to that. Well, there's a lot of implicit framework in C.S. Joseph's response as well. I've loaded the whole thing, and I can break it down into basically saying his points are control types versus movement. He makes a distinction between ENTJ and ENTP, and he says that he's the movement type, not the control type. The second main point is that his upbringing explains his difference, and also the growth and maturity explain his difference from, say, the standard understanding of a given type. So this is like saying data correlates best here. Here. And where it correlates poorly, here's the reason why it doesn't correlate well. Explains the counter evidence, basically. Explains away the counter evidence. So in this instance, he's conceding that there are some indicators that might normally be non-ENTP, but that they're explained by the fact that he was raised in an environment that didn't value. What are you doing on your phone? Take notes on what I'm saying here, especially about the framework and stuff. Take notes on paper is better. You don't need to be on your phone. That, yeah, he is more structured or more effective in some regard, but that's because of these reasons. Now, implicit underneath all of this is his archetypes and four sides of the brain model. And so if I'm going to rebut what he's saying directly, first we have to do some framework, which means, note, he is not talking about cognitive functions at any point, really. He's not really doing so. And he's not talking about any sort of understanding of cognitive functions that says you're paying attention in certain ways. Right now, you're paying attention. You're hearing my words and you're listening to what I'm saying and you're trying to understand what I'm saying and what matters. Because you're using introverted thinking probably to hear my words and process them according to how to make sense of it. For those who he's just paying attention right now to what is he supposed to look like he's doing to make himself officially follow the rules. He's not really interested in learning this because he's not really sure why we're doing it anyway, and yada, yada, yada. And Hyun, I don't know what he's up to right now. He's on his computer. You typing notes or whatever? All right, fine. So in any of these instances, you guys are paying attention to different ways. What am I doing right now? I'm basically extrovertedly intuiting. I'm using my extroverted intuition to say, here's what all this data here. I'm going to make meaning out of it in the moment. So I'm responding to what he said in that regard. And I've gotten a lot of critiques from people saying, Eric, when you answered his rebuttal, you didn't really answer what he said. And it's true, I did a pretty half-assed job of it. And it's also true that he deserves better from me. And it's also true that it's hard to respond to what he said because he didn't really say anything. He said a bunch of nothing. He says things like, here's why I'm different. Here's what ENTJ is like. Here's what ENTP is like. Here's what ENTJ is like. Here's what ENTP is like. And he gave me 2 examples in the whole thing. 2 examples. He says, here's the example of him with the playing cards as a kid. He said, let's see if we can find where that one is. Deals and trades. He talks about how he made deals and trades with other kids over trading cards to make profits, to blah, 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 blah. And he knows that ENTJs are more known to be business-minded, but, ENTPs can be too. That he's a starter, not a finisher. Except he's obviously a finisher because he's done all these videos. Not only has he done all these videos, but he's got all the other websites that are coordinated to go along with it. Guess what Eric doesn't have? He doesn't have any hosting for his talkingwithfinishedpeople.com URL. Why not? Because he's an ENTP. And guess what? He's got growth and maturity. Granted, age doesn't always mean you're going to be more mature or more wise. But again, note, his definition of wisdom is being more like an ENTJ. It's being more structured, being more effective, right? He doesn't understand that these things that he's talking about, these cognitive functions, are not four sides of the brain. They're different ways of paying attention that are exclusive, potentially, of one another. So if I'm paying attention to how to make profit off those cards so I can make the system work, I'm not paying attention to what it means. I'm not paying attention to what stories I can make. I'm not paying attention to what else I might be able to do that would be more fun at the moment. I'm not paying attention to possibilities. I'm not paying attention to making meaning. If he wants to prove to me that he's an ENTP, that he's right about his self-diagnosis, then act like one instead of trying to explain ENTJs and ENTPs to me. Wrong, okay? He explains it wrong in a number of ways. He says, NI parent. That's what he says he has, I think. Oh, no, they have an NI parent. ENTJs have an NI parent. And that means that they are necessarily interested in giving people whole experiences they can appreciate. But that's not the case at all. That's not what it means to have an NI tool function. It means to have an NI tool function is to always want to coalesce things down to the singular thing that matters most, and rather than potentiate out new ideas. Which do you prefer, Ali? Coalesce down to a single idea, like take a bunch of stuff and make it into one meaningful purpose, or the other way around? Take a meaningful truth and come up with new possibilities off of it. Okay, that would make sense. I think you're an SFJ of some kind. So the point is, you have one or two possibilities. Now, if I were going to talk about, he's saying things like the Discord example. For example, I'm always doing multiple things. I'm always multitasking, talking to people on a headset in the market on Discord while concurrently shopping for groceries and making dinner while concurrently playing World of Warcraft. I mean, there's nothing remotely ENTP-esque about that, because if you are an extroverted intuitor, you are interested in potentiating out the reality that you're playing with right now. When I am playing, I can't multitask at all. When I'm working, I can't multitask at all, because my attention is such that it's the most high energy kind of attention. Extroverted intuition requires all of your attention to come up with all these different possibilities. So what we see from C.S. Joseph in his videos is he's not coming up with all this stuff on the fly himself, like I'm coming up with this all on the fly right now. He's sharing this information he learned from a mentor. He's saying if they're being stupid because they're doing the wrong thing. That's TE stupid. TE stupid is doing the wrong thing or doing the right thing the wrong way. So if I suddenly started writing on the board up here and I use my toes to do it, you might say that's ENTJ stupid. I'd say no, that's ENTP smart. I'm demonstrating a point. It's ENTP smart because stupidity can be understood in two different ways, right? You could be stupid like, why are you, in order to go to the copy room, why did you go out the building, down the elevator, outside, come back inside, go up the elevator, come back and go to the copy room and then come back in here? That's a very roundabout way to get there, okay? That's TE stupid, or extroverted thinking stupid. It's saying that the logics of how we're accomplishing things needs to be focused on based on an efficiency metric that says, what do you want and how's the quickest way to get there? In contrast, TI stupid is along the lines of you're saying things that contradict each other, or you're not evaluating yourself according to an actual metric that's going to provide you meaningful information. If I want to evaluate you as to what kind of type of person you are, I am going to test you by saying, how comfortable are you in X? So if we're going to test extroverted intuition, I'd say, well, here, let's see if you can make up a poem that has good meter off the top of your head. Give me a subject matter, Hyun, any noun or verb or whatever. car. So if I want to make a poem that had perfect meter verse about a car, I'd say, my wife and I just got a car. It's called a Mini Cooper. And though it hasn't traveled far for us yet, it is super. Because I know it's small and white and has a black stripe too, and has a short ability to turn in circles, Sue. Thus, when I drive, I put in first, in second, third, and fourth the gears of this here car I speak and head myself up north. And once I'm there, I find the snow, and skiing do I then there go, until I've reached a water flow that marks the end of winter, yo. Okay, and that's extroverted intuition. You notice how my videos are filled with shit I'm coming up with on the fly, not stuff I'm regurgitating that's wrong. Your understanding of the four sides of the mind misunderstands the way that attention works. If I'm paying attention right now in one manner of attention, then I'm necessarily maybe using another in support, and I'm necessarily maybe not using a third. What are these 8 values and value matrices that we actually have? If we're going to understand cognitive functions and type correctly instead of wrong like this, like he says, ISFJ in his life opposed his ENTP-hood as a child. That's exactly wrong. ISFJ is the dual of the ENTP. I mean, ISFJ parent for an ENTP is the dream. That's what I had. I had an ISFJ mother who loved and appreciated me because she's my dual. Being an ISFJ means you're seeking extroverted intuition, and that's what I was providing. So the value matrix is this. Implicit value, your implicit value is clearly extroverted thinking's value of efficiency. For C.S. Joseph, his implicit value is efficiency. He assumes that because he's more efficient at things and because he's more effective at things, he's a better version of an ENTP. No, it means he's not an ENTP, because if he were, he wouldn't be valuing this implicitly in the fashion that he is. Number 2, his instrumental value. His instrumental value is truth. He's sure he's figured out the single truth here. Remember, when he took the tests, he got all different responses. But when his mentor explained it all to him and coalesced it down with a single truth, so now he's sharing that with us. And it's not something that evolves over time. It's not something that he's unsure about. He finally got all the pieces in place, so now he can express the singularity of the truth. That's a tool function called NI. So, in other words, he's TE Dom, NI second. Now let's look at his third function. What really matters to him? Doing shit. This is the absolute value. We know this because every example he gives of his own accomplishment or success is a doing-related accomplishment. He's in the supermarket, talking on the headset, getting a couple of things accomplished. The reason he's a better form of an ENTP and has this whiteboard and does everything all organized and everything is because he learned from his upbringing and from his maturity to be a more effective kind of ENTP. Except that's not a more effective kind of ENTP. That's a worse ENTP. That's not an ENTP at all. Because if it were an ENTP, they'd say, no, I don't value doing stuff in the physical world. It's sometimes necessary. Right now, we're still talking about it. I'm still ideating out about it. I'm still coming up with random stuff. I'm still making up poems in the middle of a debate class where I'm coaching the students on debate and argumentation, and I'm having them watch your YouTube video and flowing it on the board and responding to it on the board. Now, that's what I call seat of the pants. I didn't arrive here today with the intention of doing this. This is how seat of the pants works, right? And you'll know that I didn't arrive here today with any sense of how I was going to respond to your video. I'd never even watched the whole thing before today. It doesn't matter. I don't need any time to prepare. I don't need any time to think about it. I don't need to know the singular like you do. I just roll. Why? Because I'm an extroverted intuitive. Your absolute function is doing or execution. You say you're not very good at execution, but all the evidence that we have in place says that you are. You gave no personal examples of not being very good at execution. I can give lots of examples of me not being very good at execution. For example, I'm here to teach a debate class, and I'm executing this debate class by doing this thing today. You might call this multitasking. I call it multi-applying, right? It's like I can link these things together sufficiently to explain how come this is a framework issue and use it as instrumental to teach these guys more about framework. So what's his framework issue? Well, his framework issue is he's assuming that this is good, being effective, being efficient. He's assuming that it's good. And that if he deviates from being an ENTP by being more effective, that just means he's a better kind of ENTP. He's ignoring the fact that this is not necessarily good. It's not necessarily good to be efficacious or efficient. His fourth thing that he's actually seeking here is going to be FI, authenticity. And we can tell this in part, even though this is begging the question, goes in part because he doesn't even know what type he is. He has no idea what type he is. He said he tested as INTJ, but that's because he lives in the shade. All these excuses for why he's not what he is, right? Because he is seeking somebody else to tell him, look to your feelings, Luke. Look to your feelings and see if the force is there. This is, I'm sorry, I put the wrong thing in. So this should not be authenticity in 4. The fourth title of the kind of value is seeking, and the value itself for him is authenticity. He's seeking somebody else to help him understand who he is authentically. He's not able to do it very well himself because not only does he have 4th slot FI, he also has, and this is hugely telling, 7th slot SI. He understands what SI is a memory thing. That's what he says. He thinks, oh, I just remember every couple of minutes that I got to push that thing again. But that's not what SI is. SI is actually a knowledge function and epistemology. It's not just remembering. So 5, he's got, the 5th function is the absolute others. So if you are absolutely evaluating somebody else, you're saying, okay, I pretty much like everybody unless somebody's a liar. Then I don't like them. If they're a liar, I do not like them. That's what I think because I have as my absolute value for others introverted intuition, that it's the truth. You have as your absolute value for others logical consistency. So you care a lot that I'm logically consistent, and it's why you afford me legitimacy. If I weren't logically consistent, you wouldn't afford me the legitimacy. But your own logical consistency is assumed. You assume you're logically consistent enough that you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about checking yourself for logical consistency because it's ignored. It's ignored and valued as a legitimizing matrix for others. So, and meanwhile, I believe you're committed to the truth sufficiently that I absolutely think that you have legitimacy in that sense. I don't think you are actively opposed to the truth. It's not easy. It's not difficult to pass this one. So, for example, Allie, I suspect that you have extroverted sensing as your 5th slot function, absolute others. That means that you will judge other people on whether they do stuff or not. So it's like you don't care how many words I say unless I do something to make that thing happen. It doesn't count for you. And you don't think if somebody's not a doer, if they're always humming and hawing and never pulling the trigger and doing anything, ultimately you'll view them as illegitimate. Okay. Hyun, I think you are a SFP. I think you're probably an ISFP, which would mean that you are probably FE. So that would be, you would ignore, everybody has to be nice to everybody else. You don't judge yourself on that metric because you assume you're always nice to people because you get how important people's feelings are. But if somebody else appears to be mean to other people or not care about their feelings or be too rough with them emotionally in some regard, you'll say, you're not legitimate because you're mean. You'll say to the other person. You'll say, you don't do enough stuff, so you're not legitimate. And I'll say, you are a liar. You don't care about the truth, so you're not legitimate. And I think you're an ISTJ. So that would mean that you have, even though you're a different type than Ali, it would mean you have the same legitimizing thing. If you don't do stuff, you're not legitimate. Okay. In his 6th slot function, the 6th slot is what we call CounterValue. And what he countervalues, what he thinks is a dumb thing to prioritize, is the thing that he keeps claiming is his dominant function, extroverted intuition. He countervalues novelty and change in ideation. Novelty and ideation. How do we know this? All of his videos use the same model for understanding personality that he learned from his mentor. He's not developing it as he's going. It's already finalized. Why? Well, why would you want to talk about something on the internet to people and explain it all to them if you don't know what you're talking about yet? After all, that would be inefficient. After all, that wouldn't make sense logically as a thing to do. Because C.S. Joseph's an ENTJ, not an ENTP. He countervalues novelty and ideation. That's why he has none in his videos. That's why his videos are not about him making up new interpretations of things. 7. He is blind to, his blind value is self-knowledge, experience. All of my ideas that I am generating come from SI experiences. So, for example, earlier today, I made a video about how TI and TE and FE and such interact with each other based on the incident with the cars last night with me and Kim. Note that my examples come from last night, a week ago, or 2 days ago, or whatever. They might come from further back, but they're more likely to come from recency. The reason they're examples at all is probably because they are anchors off which ideation generates. Okay? So here I am using this example right now with these things on the board. You can see how my board is not as tight as his. It's got orange, it's got black, it's got all kinds of stuff on it. But I still followed what he said. You can see that when I'm relating these things to him, I'm relating them back to the experience of the individual as a human animal. If I'm going through life and I'm understanding knowledge as emerging from my experience, it's going to reflect in how I convey information. I'm going to use examples from my experience. He does give a couple of examples. One I've heard him give example of before, the cards thing, when he was a kid selling cards and trading cards and whatever. I was giving my cards away because I didn't have any good FE. I didn't understand that just giving people stuff didn't make them your friend. That was what I was doing when I was a kid. Why were we doing such different things? Not because you had a bad childhood. Your ISFJ parent, of course, was an absolute nightmare for you because you're an ENTJ and you're blind to their dominant function. Her dominant function, your ISFJ parent, what's their dominant function? Introverted sensing. What's your blind spot? Introverted sensing. Is that going to be fun for you? No. Just as it was not fun for Kimberly, my wife, whose parent was an ESTJ. She was an ISFJ daughter, and the ESTJ parent was all extrovert thinking all the time. All about efficiency. But Kim is blind to it. So she just thinks her mom's mean or something, you know? Same thing with you. You don't get ISFJs because you don't get their dominant function. They're blind. That's your blind spot. And it's also why you don't understand how I could be right about you, because you're still trying to use everything using NI, singularity of truth, based on the external world. The world's like this. ENTJs are like this. ENTPs are like this. It's never I, C.S. Joseph, am like this. Not really. It's more like, here's why I understand this to be, here's the justifications I have for defending my case that I'm an ENTP. Except you shouldn't be building that case. Cognitive functions and attentional manners are not powers you master, okay? This whole mastery thing is insane. First of all, NTs are not necessarily future-oriented. That's wrong. Just because NTs are logical doesn't mean they're future-oriented. That's a TE understanding of logic, where the future is always more logical because you've understood the steps it's going to take to get there in a certain way. It's not how NTPs are. I'm not future-oriented in the sense that I'm doing anything to make a future happen. I'm future-oriented in the sense that I'm speculating about how this reality that's manifesting right now, oh, you know what, I can see how this is going to lead to meow, 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 meow. And if somebody were smart, they should do something about this, but it's not going to be me, obviously. Their 8th slot function. This is exactly what 8th slot FE looks like is C.S. Joseph. 8th slot FE. Your, what you might call insecure / balanced or mastered function is FE, or social grace. You use it as you need to attain the goals you want, but it's not valued in and of itself. and you're not likely to overuse it, and you're not likely to make a lot of mistakes with it that are substantial. You're not going to use it wrong. You're not going to say, you're not going to taunt somebody about their most vulnerable insecurity, because that would be misusing FE, so to speak. You're going to be balancing your FE. You're going to be both likable, but also not overvaluing that. You're not going to be like, everybody has to like me, I have to be loved. You're just going to be like, well, this is how it goes. So that's the reality. C.S. Joseph is absolutely not an ENTP. He says, makes the control-based, movement-based distinction. But remember, we have an opportunity to evaluate this through many different means. We could look at our understandings of ENTJs and ENTPs, which is what he does in that entire video. You could choose to demonstrate cognitive functions. Like, the reason I know I'm expert at intuition is because I can make this random shit up on the fly. And other types can't do that. Only NE-DOMs can do that. You could try to look at it in terms of self-description. You spend all the time describing yourself and then link back to the description of the types a little bit if you wanted to. You could use lots of personal examples. So you could say, well, this is how there was this one time I was at the park with Joey and blah, blah, blah. See, the difference between NI and SI examples are, an SI example is something like, one time I was at the park with Joey and blah, 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 blah. An NI example is, I tend to be like blah, 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 without linking it to a specific instance. And C.S. Joseph does that almost without fail. He's always linking to how he is, not an instance of it, because he's an ENTJ. He gives this dinner example. Like, he goes to dinner and is still not accepted his ENTP-ness, or whatever you want to call it. He's not, it's just nonsense. What does he think it is to express the extroverted intuition, introverted thinking pairing? What does he think it is? Does he think it's having lots of ideas, or front-loading, sending text messages, or he's more accomplished with multitasking? He says ESFP and ENFP are often thought to be ADHD. So is ENTP. ENTP and ENFP are the actual ADHD types. Now, ESFP and ESTP are also likely to be called ADHD, but that's not relevant. He says that NI is worrying about his own future. No, that's SI. NI is worrying about the future, not your own future. SI is worrying about your own future. People who worry about their own future a lot are either SI DOMs, like Kimberly, or SI polar, like ENTJ. So, and of course, it's because they don't understand what they need as an animal creature. Because ENTJs don't attend to their food and drink and stuff very, very carefully. Just like ENTPs don't, but ENTPs it's seeking, it's fourth, whereas ENTJs is blind. So they really don't. And then they really don't understand that you cannot talk about cognitive functions as though they were external to an individual observing. All attention is a function of what? What do you have to have if attention is being paid? There are two things you have to have if attention is being paid. What do you have to have if attention is being paid? What is a dependent concept on attention being paid? What are two dependent concepts? For attention to be paid, you must have a meow and a meow. What are the two meows? You have to have an attender, somebody doing the attention, and you have to have an object of attention. So if I say, Joe is paying attention to the coffee, then the coffee has to exist, and so does Joe. And Joe has to have the capacity of observation, right? What does it mean to observe? Well, it means to render a reality out of nothing, basically. So if I'm observing this coffee, I'm saying, now this coffee exists existentially as significant for me. You might say it exists even when I'm not paying attention to it, because I might come back later to it and pay attention to it again, and we can presume that it continued existing while none of us were paying attention to it. As a physical object, it did, because the distinction that makes a physical object distinct from something that's not a physical object is, in one aspect of it, is object permanence. This is an object and not an agent, because Unless acted upon, this will stay in its current state more or less indefinitely. Granted, the coffee will get moldy and old and stuff over time if we leave it here for long enough, but the cup itself, which is the actual distinct object in space, it'll take a long time to just degrade unless acted upon by an external force, be it rain, be it wind, be it me, whatever. Is that true for your honesty, Hyun? Is your honesty a distinct object in space? Is your desire for candy a distinct object in space, Allie? No. Those things aren't distinct objects in space because they don't have object permanence. They're not things that we can both relate to and say, yes, that is there, it exists. They are instead observational statuses. So as an observer, you can and have the capacity to want candy. Joey, do you want candy? No, he doesn't want candy. He also has the capacity to not want candy. Do you unwant candy? You're just neutral about it. Okay, so in other words, he's not attending right now. He's not paying attention to whether or not he wants candy. What am I paying attention to? I'm paying attention to what possible ideas can I generate off of the thing I just said. I'm not really doing it actively. I'm not considering, what else might this link to? It just pops into my head automatically because it's my implicit value. So when we understand these things as we ought to understand them, implicit values meaning if something doesn't work under this modality, then you're not going to be paying attention to it at all. The reason C.S. Joseph keeps slipping back into talking about purposed stuff and being effective and being efficient is because if the thing he's doing doesn't link to this at all, he won't be paying attention to it at all. And here, the instrumental value. He doesn't value truth in and of itself. It's not worthwhile as a goal or an outcome as its own outcome. That would be doing stuff. Okay, doing stuff is its own outcome. This is its own value. The truth is instrumental to knowing what to do. So once he got all these ideas down from his mentor, and then he really had the truth, then he knew what to do. So he went ahead and did it with his execution, which is his YouTube channel, where he's got a consistency of display, he's got a consistency of topic, he's very persistent as far as like day after day after day or whatever. He's a more successful YouTube channel about personality types than I am, even though he's totally wrong and has been doing it much less of a long time than I am, and I'm way more knowledgeable. But he's more successful. Why? Is it because he's just a better ENTP than me? No, it's because he's an ENTJ, and as a consequence, yeah, he's way more efficient and effective than me. And that's okay, because it doesn't mean he's a better ENTP. It means he's not an ENTP, that he thinks that's better. It's not better. I don't care about efficiency. I don't care about effectiveness unless I know for sure what I'm trying. This is competitive. I care about effectiveness and efficiency about debate tournaments. If this were in the regular year, we wouldn't be spending time doing this. Is it useful? Is it helpful for you guys to understand things better in general? Yeah, it is. I don't think I'm wasting your time at all. But at the same time, if we had to prep for a tournament, I wouldn't spend time on this because I need to get you ready for war. We don't have tournaments in the summer, so it affords me time to talk about things that are a little bit more loosely linked like this. Still, to the extent that you guys understand cognitive functions in attentional manners better, you will be better equipped to deal with everything in life. Because if you do understand them better, when you hear somebody talking like this, you'll be able to say, okay, let's look at the frames here. What's he really valuing? What is he really valuing? Is he really valuing novelty and ideation as his implicit value? Is that his nature? Is that what he's doing all the time? Is he ideating all the time? Is he coming up with new ideas all the time? Is he framing things in different ways all the time, left and right? Is his whole channel new in its display of different approaches and stuff like that? No, it's not. Nothing's new about it. It's an example of something that is well considered to be done the way he's doing it because it's a very effective way to do it. That's why he's more effective than me. It's way more NI than anything I could ever pull off. I mean, I can pull off individual videos that are NI, that are singular wholes that work together well, but then the next video will be a whole different kind of video. So if I make a great cognitive function video, maybe this one, who knows? If I make this great cognitive function video, then I'm not going to take the obvious lesson to be learned from the fact that it gets way more views than my other videos. I don't go, oh, I get it. If I keep making videos like this, that's a way for me to be more successful. I don't care. Why should I care? Caring, for me, about that sort of stuff is countervalued, where he doesn't like what I am and do because it interferes with his singularity approach to everything. I don't like what he is and does because it interferes with my novelty approach to things. Yeah, I know we could do it your way to be more efficient and more logical and more smart. That's if we accept your implicit frame that efficiency, logical, smartness are the same thing. They're not, of course. I can be logically more intelligent than somebody and less effective or efficient at the same time, as is the case when comparing me to most people who have any level of success. Chances are I'm actually way dumber than them if you're going to measure me on effectiveness or efficiency. And if you were going to determine intelligence based on that in general or spatial intelligence stuff, you'd say I was borderline mentally retarded. Except nobody ever says that to me. Why not? Why don't they say, Eric, you're borderline mentally retarded? Except Kim will say stuff like that to me. Well, because while I am very much not interested in CounterValue that kind of intelligence, I'm very good at the kind of intelligence that C.S. Joseph doesn't demonstrate much of. Not that he's bad at it, but he just doesn't demonstrate much of it. Introverted thinking, logical consistency. Why doesn't he demonstrate much of it? Because he assumes it in himself. How do we know he doesn't demonstrate much of it? There are no definitional links, really. The argumentation here is not even argumentation. It's just going over how ENTJs are and ENTPs are and saying, well, this is why I don't seem like a regular ENTP. Because my INTJ shadow. Do I have an INTJ shadow? What does that look like? Why don't I seem to be expressing myself by this thing? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know. I can't think of times when I've been particularly INTJ-ish. What is an INTJ like? They're like the super sciencey nerdy guys who go, oh, if we add 3 more isotopes, we can do this in chemistry. Well, I don't have any really of that in me. I don't like that stuff. It's dumb. I don't like it. I don't like feelings. I don't like efficiency. I don't like doing stuff. I do like truth because it's my 5th function. So I want to ask you guys, all 3 of you, we talked about this stuff before, of the kind of values we have here: efficiency, truth, execution, authenticity, logical consistency, novelty and ideation, self-knowledge and experience, or social grace. What do you think your implicit value is? The thing that it must be engaging on one of these levels to be legitimate at all for you to pay attention to. Are you going to be most likely to need something to have at least some authenticity to it for you to pay attention? Or are you going to need to have at least some novelty to pay attention? Are you going to need to have at least some link to your own personal experience? Are you going to need to have at least some link to social grace? What do you think your implicit function is? What do you think your implicit value? What do you think your dominant function is? Joey, what do you think it is? Speak words with your mouth. Allie, what do you think it is? Yeah, well, you know what that would mean? Because I said you're an ISFJ, is what I think you are, Allie. And ISFJs have this as their dominant function. Okay? So if you are in fact an ISFJ, that answer is consistent with it, that you would have self-knowledge as your implicit function. What do you think, Keon? Which one of these is your implicit? Efficiency, truth, execution, authenticity, logical consistency, novelty, self-knowledge, or grace?
Either logical consistency or
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Keon. If Tommy gets hurt playing football on Sunday, then he'll have to miss school on Monday. And if he misses school on Monday, he won't be able to go to the field trip on Tuesday because he'll have to stay behind and make up his Spanish test. However, if he can take his Spanish test today, Friday, before the game on Sunday, then it won't matter if he hurts himself in football because even if he does, he'll still be able to go on a field trip on Tuesday. Now, He turns out he is able to go on the field trip on Tuesday. So what can we conclude from that? Very good. So, okay, that's a sign. He was able to answer that question right away. He answered it correctly. What you can conclude is either he took the test early or he didn't get injured. That's absolutely correct. And an indication that you do have TI probably fairly high in the stack. If you're logical consistency and you say that one, you think it's either logical consistency or efficiency, what's the first thing you do when if I were to ask you to build a boat for me? What's the first thing? Okay, but I'm asking you, okay, hey, I need to know right now. I need help. How do you build a boat? What's the first step? Get depth safe. Well, okay, so I think a TE person would say, I'd ask what kind of boat you want to build. That's an efficiency kind of question. A logic kind of question is, what you did was say, okay, well, what's the first thing I'm going to do if I have to know how to learn to use a boat? I'm going to seek information from others or the internet. That's an FE kind of response. So FETI says, I'm going to seek information from others, and I'm going to deal with these things logically as words. Whereas extrovert thinking says, and introvert feeling says, I'm going to know what I really want and figure out how to attain that outcome regardless of the logical consistency of it. So I would agree, based on your answers right there, you're probably TIFE. As to which one comes first, that's another question. Probably TI, maybe. You might be an ISTP, maybe? All right. So which one of these do you want as your implicit? Then we'll go take a break. I know you guys are answering for a break. On delay.
Okay, can you give an example of self-knowledge?
Well, for example, let's say we're going hiking. This person wants to know if we're taking the best route for hiking. It's going to efficiently lead us back to our car at the end, and we don't have to waste any time. We're not doing anything dumb like that. This person wants to know what holistic vision of understanding from nature and man we can draw from the experience. Maybe this person wants to know. Doesn't want to know anything. They just want to go do it, right? This person wants to make sure they really want to go hiking. They're not sure if they really want to go hiking or not. They need to sit down with their own feelings for a bit and decide what they really want. This person wants to know if going hiking is logically consistent with what you said before we were going to do. So before you say, I hate hiking, then you go, let's go hiking. I'll say, wait a second, didn't you say you hated hiking? That would be my concern here if I'm the logical consistency. If I'm novelty or ideation, my concern is, have we been hiking there before? Because I want to go hiking somewhere new. If I'm self-knowledge, the concern is, am I really fit for a hike today? Because my legs are still kind of sore from the other day when I had to do squats in PE. Maybe now's not a good day. I'll probably get tired partway through. That's self-knowledge. And then the last one, social grace, is like, well, who's going on this and how much fun am I going to have hanging out with them? And does everybody really want to go hiking? Are you trying to push this plan through on the group when really other people want to go to Denny's instead? Because if so, then you're being rude and I'm going to scold you for it. So that's 8 different ways we could respond to the idea of let's go hiking, right? And each of them represents a different manner of attention. If I'm focusing on whether it's efficiency, that's because I'm paying attention that way. I'm approaching everything that way. Here's a flower, Bob. Let's see. What's the most efficient way to keep this fresh for a long period of time? I'm going to put in water right here in this small vase. I'm going to make sure I use a clear vase because that way I'll be able to see when the water starts to get gross. I'll be able to change it. It will remind me I want to think about it. That's how Bob's going to think about the flower. Here's a flower. I see what this means. It coalesces from the expression of feelings that you're giving. I really understand how you feel towards me now, and it's a singularity of truth or something. Or this means, whatever. The execution thing, somebody gives me a rose and go, okay, so what am I supposed to do with this? I want to know what to do with it, right? Authenticity, I go, oh, I love this flower. I love it. I love it with my little heart. And logical consistency, go, this is stupid. Why did you give me a flower? I said previously that I don't really like flowers. Or how does this benefit us? Or something like that. It's a little different than efficiency, right? You might say this is would be getting me flowers inefficient, but no. The efficiency model would say, how can I efficiently deal with this thing now that I have it? This one might say, it's inefficient to get me a flower. I don't like it. It might use the language of TE, but it would still be TI because it's talking about the meanings of it, not the actuality of it. Because introverted thinking and TI are logical consistency. This is objective, but efficiency is subjective. The reason we know that is because you can only know whether you efficiently did something by knowing precisely what it is you're trying to accomplish. You might say it's inefficient of me to put this pen back here like this, because after all, it makes it harder to get to. It's back here now. Except it's not inefficient if my goal is to stop myself from constantly clicking that pen. This is a very efficient way to do that. Now it's no longer in my hands. I'm less likely to click it. It's efficient because it's back here. The point is, efficiency, whether something is efficient or not, depends entirely on your subjective understanding of what you're trying to do. Whereas whether or not you're logically consistent is objective. So if you said earlier, Allie, if you don't take a break, I'm going to throw my laptop out this window here. I'm going to break the I'm going to throw it out. If we don't take a break by 5:12, I'm going to throw this out the window. Well, then I'd say, well, it's 5:13, Allie. You didn't throw it out the window. I guess you were lying. Me. That's what a TI person might say. An efficiency person wouldn't bring it up at all because it's not useful. Why would I bring that up? Because she didn't do it, so I don't have to worry about it. If she had done it, then I have to worry about something, right? This novelty and ideation, it says, okay, we need to build a boat. TE is going to go, well, what kind of boat? TI will be like, why? Why do we need to build a boat? The novelty and ideation go, ooh, okay, I know. Okay, listen, just hear me out, Let's get a bunch of old tires, and we're going to trap them all together, and we're going to fill them with like milk bottles filled with air, so it's like a floater thing, okay? And then I'm going to put some like boards on top of it. No, not boards, like maybe like metal or, no, wait, hold on. Just wait 1 second. Okay, so like get a bunch of poles. You know what, never mind. Let's use some wheels. That's extrovert intuition and novelty, coming up with a bunch of different ideas, not caring why you want the boat, what kind of boat you want, what you want it for, whether it's efficient, whether it makes sense, not caring about whether it's true you want a boat even, just playing with the idea of boat, right? And same with the experienced one will be like, you want a boat? Have I ever built a boat before? Nope. Guess I don't know how to build one. Have I ever seen a boat before? Yes, I have seen a boat. I know what a boat is. I remember this one time I went on a boat. It was at the park and blah, 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 blah. I didn't give a bunch of specific details. That's self-knowledge. So you see, which one do you want? 1 or 7, efficiency or self-knowledge? Well, I picked you as a ISTJ. If I'm right about that, your 1-2 is 7 and 1. So that would make perfect sense. I think you are an ISTJ, just as I think you are an ISFJ. You, I think I was wrong about. I thought you were SFP, but now I see so much TI in you. Because if you were an ESFP, you wouldn't have been able to do that logic problem at all. Like, I've got a person in my channel who insists she's an ENTP, or she's associated with the channel anyway. The reason she's able to insist that and continue to believe herself about it is because she's an ESFP. What's her blind spot? Logical consistency. She's unable to be logical about her own self because she knows what she wants to be, not what it means to be objective, and say, all right, Eric, I know you want it this way, but be objective now. Eric, are you lying to yourself? Are you telling yourself the truth? You're being fair, you're being unfair. You have to be fair by being just as critical of yourself and your own ideas as anybody else. That's TI as a tool function. I'm so always using it to do everything. I'm using logical consistency to do everything. I apply it to myself just as strongly as I do to anything else. And ESFP is incapable of doing that. Why? Because it's their blind spot. They don't even understand how it is or why it is that one's type determination should be based on consistency with the metrics. Brittany it's blind. She's blind to it. And so as a consequence, she'll never really be able to, unless she chooses to turn that area of stuff over to somebody who's competent in it, she's never going to make any progress in that area. It's like she's just going to continue coming up with reasons why she's an ENTP, but she's obviously not. Just as obviously as C.S. Joseph is not. So sorry, everybody who thinks he is, you're wrong. And for those of you who demanded that I make a better rebuttal, here you go. And you were right about that. I did need to make a better rebuttal, and I apologize for my first half-assed one. Thank you, C.S. Joseph, for your rebuttal. I hope this AT rebuttal successfully convinces you that, in fact, you are entirely wrong about your own type.